Welcome to Dr. M. Health Talk Show. Welcome. I am Dr. Unat Makiwane, your host. Welcome. Let me know if you can hear us. Let me know if you can hear us, and please let us know where you are tuning from. Today is a special day. We have a man, and the topic today is about men. And of course, we're going to touch on women too. So please let me know if you can hear us. And I just want to, before we start, I want to tell our LinkedIn family that unfortunately, LinkedIn doesn't allow us to pull up your comments, because at the end, we're going to pull up your comments. So my apologies. Just join us on Facebook and also on YouTube. Same name, Dr. M Health Corner. Again, welcome. I'm going to introduce our guest here to my right. I have my beloved friend here, Dr. Vuyo Yokwe. He is a general practitioner in South Africa, and he kind of took a different approach in medicine. He's focusing on healthcare professionals. He wants to know what's going on with us. And now these are hard times. You know, COVID-19 is hitting us so badly, and he wants to connect with us emotionally. I love that. By the way, Dr. Vuyo, you've seen Dr. Vuyo here before, you guys. He is our regular. Welcome, Doc.
No, thanks so much, man. Thanks for having me in the space again.
Thank you so much. And of course, far right, I have Tholinhlanhla. Tholinhlanhla is actually also our our guest here, who has been here before in the last few weeks. Tholinhlanhla is actually a counseling psychologist. We came here with Tholinhlanhla and took a deep dive on gender-based violence. So today we're doing a part 2. So yes, I'm so happy to have Tholinhlanhla. Tholinhlanhla is basically a practicing counseling psychologist in Amanzimtoti. She also runs a private foundation. She does a lot of things. She's a speaker. She's an author. Welcome, Sisi.
Hello, we are back.
Yes, I'm excited. You guys are celebrating heritage in South Africa right now.
I am here at my ancestral home, and so I'm not alone today. So I'm here with the whole entourage.
Yes,
with the whole entourage. So Lusigi today, you know. You have the advantage of just being in the Eastern Cape for a change. So here we are.
Awesome.
Lovely, man.
So our viewers can hear us, guys. So I'm glad. Thank you so much for joining us. I see our family is here. Thank you. Today we are discussing gender-based violence. Gender-based violence, and actually, Dr. Vuyo, I'm going to start with you. Male gender-based violence is a very silent crisis globally. You know, I see that here also in this side of the world, in Canada, or just in the side of the Western world. And in my 15 years of practice, not once ever saw a male patient coming in reporting gender-based violence. I mean, it's still hard to get it out from females. So I want us to talk about men. Do you see that in your practice, and why are we not seeing men coming in complaining about gender-based violence?
Whoa, yeah. Men, you started saying that it is a silent crisis. I believe it is a scare, eh? So silent because people are not coming out to say, listen, I'm involved in this box, right? But people see it, and you know, the first people to hide it now become the women. But however, from the male side, it is difficult for me. And I think we're going to be discussing it as we go. I think fundamentally there is a foundational problem with men reporting anything. So emotionality for me with men is a big difference. I think even before we go into what happens, I feel that we are going to still discuss much more of what is it that is inside the men, in their culture, in what they're socialized with, is the basis for gender-based violence. And I think for now, let's just go into that. And then, you know, generally, I feel that the silent part, you know, comes from the fact that no one is ready to talk about it because of the ways people are socialized, at least here in South Africa.
Yes, yeah, no, it's a global crisis. It's a global crisis. Yeah. I mean, I see it cross-culturally. You know what, Tholinhlanhla, tell us, in your practice, and more so in our culture now, we're starting to come out and talk about our emotions. And I'm assuming that you also see other cultures. You're in Durban. Durban is cross-cultural. You see the East Indian population, and then of course Black, white. What are you seeing in your practice? Are people coming in with gender-based violence cases? Are they reporting it? What is the stats out there?
I think more women are reporting it. Men, they hinted and not openly reported. So what men will do, they will sit and keep quiet and let a woman go, and then he'll go, yeah. That sarcastic smile will then tell you there is something going on. And unless you probe and ask and really show empathy to say what is going on, they will never really come out and tell you. But when you, it's almost as if you need to be fully on their side, that they can find comfort and find a safe space to actually say, you know what, sis, this woman is also abusing me. We are here because, and I find that in most cases, it's because women can talk louder and women can talk a lot. And so the men will just say, as in, because I'll just let her say whatever she wants to say. However, they are suffering. And after our conversations, then I was getting a lot of videos of people showing women abusing men, and they're saying, but you're not saying anything about this.
Yeah. Yes. You know what, Nhlanhla, when you said you just kind of see the hints, you know, the cues they give out. And I want us to actually define gender-based violence, because a lot of times people don't understand it's not necessarily the physical aspect of it. And, you know, women, we are good with our words, you know, and our words can have thorns. Now, when you said a man is sitting there and going, you know, and usually that's usually the case. I mean, it gets physical at some point, but women tend to use the words. I was looking at the stats of people that are in refugee camps, and men, when they are moved to such spaces where they are ripped of their material things. You know how people move to refugee spaces. Either you left your country because of war or whatever reason that made you leave your space. So obviously there won't be any comfort there. There's no jobs. So even the women, the wives, start mocking this man, also this community. So Dr. Vuyo, let's go back to you. You were mentioning that it starts with how you guys are socialized. Do you want to go on to that a little bit more?
Yeah, you see, Unathi, that's the space that I myself am from. So we are going to get a mixture of everything, because I'm a professional in the space. But again, I'm a person who has lived with some of the things that potentially can cause, you know, gender-based violence. I think that as a community, we see the way that I speak to my partner, and at the end of the day, and you see abusive words or even trauma, that's just the resultant of something. So for me, I believe that the trauma that was given to the people and when they were younger replicates itself until then they do the same thing to the next person. So let me give you an example here. There's a young man who is a very quiet young man who is a healthcare provider himself. He's very young. He's an intern. Now, I had a chat with this guy, and he says, listen, man, you know, fortunately, someone came and told me, Vuyo, I see what you do on Mind Zone, which is my program that I talk about mentality and mind health issues. Then this lady comes and says, listen, there's someone I want you to speak to. And then he comes and he cries and he says, listen, you know, I've been, you know, hitting on my girlfriend. And here's my story. When I was young, this thing happened in front of my eyes every day, and it traumatized me. What I then did say after that, I said that it will never happen in my life. But now his time came. It just, you know, came through, and it became, you know, the nightmare in front of him without him able to hold it back. So it talks to something. We as the body of clinicians, okay, when you talk about gender-based violence, we know the justice, we know the criminology, we know what they do. But for me, that's at the end of it all. Now, we as the body of professionals need to come up and think about this, have a revolution into thinking about gender-based violence and into the ways that culture, first is the culture segment of life, then the others for me. So I feel that foundationally, that is where we've got a big burden for centuries of how a man, for an example, treats a woman. So I think basically that's where I come from with looking at it.
Yes, that's packed. That's packed. You know what, Ndana? Vuyo is talking now about our childhood. How does childhood affect our being? Basically, that's basically, this is a perfect example of a young man who probably saw his uncle or his father hitting his mother, and then it gets ingrained in his head. He vowed as a little boy that this would never happen. But unfortunately, something weird about our brains. Whatever our brain is familiar to, it identifies it. So
can I touch on one thing?
Go ahead.
Toli, before you speak, you know this boy comes into one space where he breaks and he says, listen, I vowed, but now before I do anything, when I want to express myself, that's the pain point. When I want to express myself, I find it difficult to reach, that ceiling where I feel that I'm heard. Then when I started hitting, then I felt, wow, I'm alive. And for him, that was a drive, that was a satisfaction. See how it is, right?
It's so dysfunctional. It's sad. Wow. It's sad because it goes back to what you said in the beginning, how the culture socializes men or boy children not to show up, show their emotions. Tata, tell me, sis, where does this start? Like, I mean, I really want to understand the childhood aspect of how do we become.
So when we can just tap back to when a boy child is bullied at school. So Magabuya Ekaya, he will say, mom or dad, there's these boys that are bullying me or they're hitting me. What the usual answer would be, when why didn't you hit back? That is the thing. Oh, you are a boy. Don't let other boys bully you. If they beat you, beat them back. And that is what we hear every day. That's what we say. When you are a boy, when we hit you, you hit them back, so then they stop. So that's what you know. When somebody does this, that's how you resolve it. As you grow up, there's also the thing I touched on it last time to say, even when you're approaching a woman, you use your power so that you can be heard. And this is what you see, this is what you get told, this is what you grow up knowing as being normal. At no point somebody tells you, this is abuse. So only now, it's now framed as abuse. So we also have boys who then get bitten by girls. And when you go home and you say, Tholinhlanhla was beating me at school, and the answer will be, what kind of a boy are you to be beaten by a girl? So therefore, when you get a hiding from a girl, you're gonna shut up. You're not gonna tell anyone, because if you say, then you are weak, then you are what kind of a boy are you? And in essence, they even call you a girl at the end of the day. Because a person that should be getting a beating is a girl. So when the roles are reversed, now you become the girl, which is a bad thing. So then shut up. So that's why you find a lot of husbands are beaten up by the woman. The husbands, they are financially abused by the wives, where the card ihlala kumama ekhaya, but you're not going to say these things. They are abused by the women by the verbal, when they say yewena, how they speak to the men in the house. So now you are raising these girls in the same house where the mother will be calling the father, yay when I get, yay when I do this, yay when I ipimali, yay. So that is the verbal abuse that we do. When a man comes and you're kwaba, we are, that this girl is watching. So when she's getting into a relationship, when she finds a man, she's looking for a man that she can bully around, that she can just beat around, because that is what, you're a strong woman by doing that. Because we are tired of men who are beating us up, so therefore it's our turn. So now, instead of changing completely that we say gender violence must stop, we are saying now as women, let's take our turn. So that's why we teach, that's what we're teaching our girls now, to say, It's our turn. Let's do this. And it doesn't end there. I said women talk a lot, so they have verbal abuse, but women also have non-verbal abuse, because women will sit and not talk to you for a month. And the woman will sit and not give you food for a month. A woman will sit and not have sex with you for a year. And that is also a gender violence.
Yes.
Because again, you are here and you are depriving me, and not because there is whatever, some argument, whatever, but you are saying, I am doing this to show you who am I. So there's a difference when you're not doing things because you are not in alignment, you're not in good terms with your partner and things that needs to be resolved. But when you're doing it out of power and you're saying, I'm in power and I'm going to deprive you this to show you how small or belittle you, that is gender-based violence.
Wow.
You know, so instead of saying let's stop, we are turning the tables around now. We're saying, as women, let's show them that we can do this better. You know, whereas men will kill us physically, we now hire hit men to kill them. We now poison them. So we're not stopping, we're paying revenge. And where is this taking us? And so our kids start learning at a very young age, because you're saying, no, they're young. From 7 years old, that child will tell you exactly what was done to her father. At 7 years old, that boy will tell you exactly what he was experiencing in that household. And he grows up acting out to exactly what was going on. If not the opposite, then he would say, I would never, like the intern you're talking about, to say it will never happen in my space. And then he finds a woman who pushes him to be in that space.
Yes. You know what, recently that I was saying to a group of women, we were discussing actually a gender-based violence situation, where I said, actually, narcissists are cooked at home. Let's stick with that. Narcissists are cooked at home. You know, and a lot of times we normalize anger in our families. We start saying, oh, he's like his uncle. You said this actually last time you were here, that he's like his uncle. Yeah, no, our grandfather was like this. And going back to our history, where there's actually history of trauma, you know, generational trauma is a reality that makes people to be the way they are today till we break this trauma. So you guys, tell me, you touched a bit on even women doing the silent treatment. That's basically, it's an emotional abuse. You talked about financial abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, because it comes in either in assault like that, or just the deprivation of basically your partner are depriving him. So let's talk about, I know that it doesn't really end. Now we are living in the society where there's more than two genders. There's also the community of the LGBTI. You know, those people are suffering in silence. They're not only experiencing this abuse, also from their partners and also the societies we live in. We are not an accepting society. Do you want to say something, you guys, on that? And are you starting to see them coming out for help? I mean, even for mental health, Vuyo, how many have you diagnosed with depression? There's many. People are struggling.
No, now that you're saying, man, I think that, you know, it's something that's coming very slow to me, because I do not, you know, in the practice, as it were, see as many of the people that come with, you know, severe GBVs. But, you know, it's only on my mind zone digital spaces where I come across people. So, but now that you're saying it, you know, there would be, you know, even before this time when, you know, they started being, you know, able to be heard, I think that there would have been lots of trauma. From your side, are you seeing anything?
Of course I am, and it starts from the families. It starts from us jokingly saying, you cannot be gay in my house. If you are, you better do something about it. It starts from the churches where we go, and when they start preaching about these gay people, and yet you are there sitting and you now don't know. So how didn't you come out after people have said something implying that those people are animals when you're there? So a lot of people have suffered in silence because they have no safe space to go to. So even in the practice, you will find that someone will phone first and ask you if you're open to seeing somebody who's either gay or lesbian or bi or whatever, because they will tell you, if they've experienced coming to us, health practitioners, and somebody just says, I completely cannot deal with you because I don't subscribe to such. I don't believe it. I don't want to be associated with it. So that is now supposed to be a safe space. That is supposed to be a space where you're going to be heard and not judged. But that space tells you you're not acceptable. There's transgender. Those people, when they go through that experience, they need us to be there to help them adjust. But if we don't accept them ourselves, then what? So it is a lot of things. There's a lot of correctional trauma where people, correctional assault, where people will want to have sex with you because they want to change you. We want to show you that actually you are a girl, so I'm going to rape you so that you can be corrected and be fine. That is GBV. And I said last time that we keep focusing on the dead bodies, but honestly, GBV is very wide and vast, and people are dying and they are dead inside. You know
what, Ntlanhla, I was looking at World Health Organization stats. 1 in 3 women will experience or is experiencing gender-based violence. And you guys mentioned what type of these abuses are. And the sad part is there's even 38%, when you look at the murders, the stats, global stats of murders, 38% of women who are dying today, it's intimate related partners that cause that. You just mentioned it here that, people, they go as far as hiring, hitmen. I mean, now I'm even seeing this trending thing in South Africa. I've been seeing it a lot on social media, where people would even take a life insurance on you, and they hire someone to kill you. Either it's a spouse or it's a family member. What is going on? So these things are happening. This is gender-based violence, whichever it comes from. Like, it's the wife that hires this man, or the opposite. The men are hiring people to kill their wives. This is happening right in 2021, Vuyo. It's happening right in 2021. Say something.
No, for me, you see, as you guys are speaking, as we are having this discussion, and I really respect this, unity of the bodies of different professions in this space. And I think that's one of the things fundamentally we're going to be marrying and taking forward. But I think now there's multiple, factors to generate towards this gender-based violence. And we did say that one of the things is cultural escape, right? Now, once as you are, touching on people hiring out, I was taking kids to school, and I was listening to this on 947 that a certain lady did A, B, and C I think what the deceased did is difficult. So what the deceased did, they called an insurance line and take insurance, what was it against? But insurance for themselves. So what they did is, let me just collect this again. So the deceased took insurance on their behalf and claiming to be the next person or the partner, right? So what then happened was it did not succeed. Then the partner found that and arranged for the person to be killed. So that's the things happening. I think the way towards a divorce or something like that, be it as it may. Now I think that now there's going to be even issues of poverty, not poverty, but mostly what is happening now with the post-COVID era, and that why is he divorcing me now, and he has not placed me accordingly in this space, that kind of thing. And it's worrisome. I was not even aware, we were looking at that gender-based violence in that kind of space, but now that you're saying
Oh yes,
Yeah.
it's happening, Vuyo. And now that you're
Yeah.
mentioning, actually, one time I was talking to a friend here who's in corporate, and she was telling me, how do we move forward post-COVID? Because COVID has
Yeah.
caused a lot of trauma. People lost jobs.
Yeah.
People lost marriages, relationships. How do we move past this? So there's
Yeah.
so much trauma people are going through right now. Until we normalize mental health, help, seeking that help, and also, normalizing these conversations in our homes, in our
Yeah.
businesses, in the
Yeah.
workplace. Unfortunately, we live in a reactive society where we want to start doing these things when there's someone who committed suicide, when a CEO committed suicide, all these things. I think COVID-19 is here to teach us that this is part of, until we are well mentally, will perform. And look at what I said in the beginning, the narcissism we see in the world. How many CEOs we see, men and women, who are so bitter, who abuse people that are under them because of power. That is abuse. That is abuse. And let's talk about that actually, Tata. Do you ever see women coming in to for mental health support? Where actually, again, a few days ago, I was actually listening to someone who was talking about, nowadays it's so hard to get a job. You have to do something in exchange. It's either you pay or you have to pay sexually. Guys, do you want to comment on that? Because this is abuse. And actually, it's not only for women, even men who are looking for work, women in power are looking for the same exchange. Yes.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna try and refrain to speak more about women today and engage about what men are going through. And you touched very well on how on what men go through. Also, when men want jobs, when men want financial support, when men want recognition, they need to get this powerful woman who then will want someone to have sex with, and therefore literally just run around. Listen, I want to say, I just had a thought while you were talking, ukuthi idliso, ukudlisa umuntu, what you call this love portion, it is GBV. That is gender-based violence, because we so there's a thin line between things that we accept and laugh about, to say, hey, will you see when if the GBV of the abuse of men wasn't there wouldn't be igama elithi is yo sendoda. That we started hearing when we were young. We didn't understand what is yo sendota was, but it was that man that just runs around behind the woman and be sent there and be sent here. And what the community will then say, he's been bewitched or given a love portion. And so because he's so, then we laugh, then we move on, then we say whatever. But that is GPV. Because what happens is it can go one or two ways. When that motive gets finished, then this man, his mental side comes back. Then he starts killing this woman. Then what do we say? Men are killing women. But if you look at the scenario that I gave you, who started it? So yes. So it's exactly that. And I always want to make sure that we also cover context, especially in the South African perspective, where context says we also go to healers, whether you go to a traditional healer and that healer will then sleep with you. Whether you're a man or a woman, once there is power, once there is an element of power to say, for your journey to be okay, for your journey to be quicker, you need to sleep with me, or we need to exchange DNA through sex or whatever, then therefore do it. The element of power says, so that this thing can be finished, I can go home, let me do this. And then you're not going to say anything, you need to keep quiet. And culture and tradition and ritual will say, this is so sacred, you do not tell anyone. People get raped by their physicians. People get raped by their gynecologist. People get raped by their psychologist. You come to me, I put you to sleep, and I tell you whatever you're going to experience is going to heal you, and really you are vulnerable. you don't know what is happening, and I, the person that is supposed to be healing you, tell you there is other ways of healing, and I rape you.
Wow.
Be it a woman, be it a man. We have in our field, there's sexual specialist. So you will come as a man and you say, look, I don't know what's happening. My wife is complaining or whatever, and I will give you practicals. You're not consenting to this because you don't want, but because I have told you. Cognitively, I've wired you to believe that for me to teach you, I need to do this to you. And in essence, I am abusing you. That is gender-based violence.
Yes.
There is there's an element of power.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Element of power. And actually, this side of the world, you literally lose your license. And I think in our African space, there's still lenience to health professionals and psychologists, because this happens every day. You're right. How many people come vulnerably, coming for psychological support, or even to psychiatrists? I mean, we've seen or heard of people that even, Vuyo, let's talk about med school. How many women or girls who professors who were supposed to protect us came out at some point in their lives, in their careers, talked about how prof basically insinuated something, or prof literally said, if you don't give it to me, you're not going to pass second year. There's people, when I started second year, people were saying, Snati, to be honest, there's professors that left med school, went into private, but if they were here, this is the type of stuff they would be looking for. People used to like say these things. I'll say, guys, how come people never reported these things? So the power that we're talking about, sometimes it comes from our pastors, it comes from our professors that are supposed to look out for us, it comes from our fathers, it comes from our uncles, it comes from our teachers, it comes from our colleagues. Guys, let's talk about this. You know, I don't even want to start the child abuse that occurs in other African countries where a child is married to an older man as old as her father. I don't want to go about the boys that are molested in their villages, or even I have a friend who's a film producer who was telling me, actually, I need to bring her on here. She was talking about men that complain to them that are abused in the industry before they get a job. These are men that are abused. This is violence, guys. Let's talk about these things.
Yeah.
We want to say something.
You talk about med school, especially in our setting. I think it was mostly the ladies or the women that were victims. And now there's something that sits with me as you are talking about this, the power of the stories, right? I think that we also need to tune ourselves to talk about these things, so that then it becomes a shame for the people who think to want to do this. Because there's a lady particularly who told me a story. She's a specialist now, and now she says, Vuyo, in your space, invite me one day. We need to talk about our stories. We need to build our country from the stories that happened to us. Now she says, A, B, and C happened at the time I was in second year. I thought to quit. You see, I did not quit. And I am here now because I used my ways in what I believe in. And now I am here. And there's a young child who can learn from these things. And I say, listen, when you're ready, the power of sharing stories is very, very powerful itself. And like what you were saying, it's something that's, problematic to young girls today. I so understand that even to males now these days. So that's a reality, man.
It's a reality, Vuyo, and we need to equally acknowledge boys and men, young men, who are abused by women and also abused by men. Like specifically, my friend who's this film producer, he said men are abused by men too in the industry. Oh yes, they are abused by men in the industry, and they quietly do it because they want, and it's a competitive space, right? It's a competitive space. It's very sad.
Silent.
Yes.
That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to add. Uguti, we are saying Uguti Vuyo is actually saying Uguti. We are saying it's mostly females who were mostly victims. I want to put it to you, Uguti. Most guys were victims, but because they had no voice, because they could not tell anyone, because what then would you think of them if they had told you? So that's the thing. The problem is with women sometimes, it's understandable. Not so, I don't want to use the word understand, but you can hear it, you can listen to it, which okay. But once it's a guy, and the professor who did this to them, he is married, he is not gay, so he will come across as, how could I molest another man? So then who becomes a liar? It will be you. So then they keep quiet, and you become, it's out of shame and an embarrassment for yourself that you would not speak out. Even now, I had a conversation, or I dealt with a case where an elderly man was saying how he's still traumatized by how a cousin who was older than him actually molested him. And when he reported it, the parents they just laughed it off to say, "Ay man, bendlala umasgcozi, ubedlala umasgcozi," And it sat with me to think, really, because it was normalized, kids will play, they'll have play sex, so therefore it was just kids.
It's normal.
But the thing is, and the thing is, nobody ever sat back and thought, what does this happen to you when you're older, when you are able to conceptualize what actually was happening back then? Because yes, at that age, you thought niyadlala. But when you're older, and now you realize, this girl was actually older than me, she probably knew better. What was she doing to me? Then you start feeling, hi man, she molested me. And and then the adults would be like, no, she was just playing with you. So I think we also need to, as parents as well, to start being cognizant of the fact that some things we take very light because they were made normal, and yet they are not normal. They by no means they are normal. By no means we should downplay them and say, no, get over it. A lot, and I suppose maybe because of the space that I'm in, but a lot of men were molested when younger. By men in the communities, by men in the village, which were trusted, and they could never utter a word out of fear, because this man would say, I will kill you, and in any case, no one would believe you. So we need to start showing men that we are here, we understand what they went through, we feel what they went through, and therefore nobody is here to judge them, and they need to start coming out so therefore they can heal. And that's a generational trauma that I was talking about. Because if your husband was molested at a young age, and he is now a father to a boy who's being molested, he will never know how to deal with it because he's got his own pain to deal with.
Yes. Wow. Inhlanhla, talk of your undealt trauma as an adult or as a parent. It's very important for us to heal from these things, because these, the saying that you bleed to people who never cut you. You bleed into your child, you bleed into your children, you bleed into your spouse, your partner, you bleed into your colleagues, you bleed into your siblings, your friends. And then you become a loner. People start saying, I could never be friends with this person. You are named names, and yet you have trauma you never dealt with. Someone said last week, each one of us has gone through some trauma, and until we acknowledge that, until we go back to those stories, because unfortunately, no one in this world should be a loner. No one is an island. COVID-19 has taught us we miss each other. People start saying, I cannot work from home. I miss my colleagues. But some colleagues are like, oh my gosh, I'm good that I'm away from this person. Do you understand? And you mentioned something that about us parents. The other thing, although some parents don't have the privilege of having different bedrooms or beds for their kids, let's talk about parents that naively let their kids sleep together, even siblings. We've seen one time, I'm actually on this website called Quora. You guys check it out, Quora. Great minds there. Few people there were saying, guys, I was introduced to sexual act and kissing from my sibling, my brother. He started kissing me. I started having sexual intercourse with my brother. By the time he was in the age of dating or marrying, I got jealous of that person he was marrying because I am used to being that partner. These things happen. It's not a white thing. A lot of times people think that it's a white thing. It happens in our cultures. All right. So these things happen. And so I think parents need to be very, like you said, that we need to be careful. How is the sleeping arrangement in our homes? Right? You know, and also the trusting our kids. Who is looking after your child when you're at work? I know this is COVID time where people are working and we are leaving our kids probably all by themselves. Who is monitoring these kids? All right. And kids, they are curious by nature. Kids, they start exploring. Your boy child or your girl child could start experimenting with your girl child or your boy child. You know, and also let's talk about stepfathers or stepmothers that molest kids and the uncles that we send our kids to, both boys and the girls. So parents who are watching us, you need to be careful who is in your child's life. And also, who do you associate with? The partners you have, do you tolerate trauma? Do you tolerate violence and normalize it? Some parents here, they say, I'm staying for my kids. Tlantla, you said something last time you were here. The staying for the kids is more destructive and more detrimental to the child because you are giving this child this template to send out to the world that this is how he should be treated by partners or even relationships in general, the friends. How many people are people pleasing here because of traumatic backgrounds?
Yeah.
Guys,
Vuyo team.
Yeah. Hey, no, man. I'm, there's quite a lot that's coming through, and it's difficult to even process when you are a child because now I went into a mode where I became a parent.
Right? Yes.
And really thinking about all of them.
Guys, it's hard. Like I said, all of us, when you look back in your childhood, something at some point happened to all of us. Do you understand? It doesn't matter if it was physical abuse or it was sexual abuse, emotional abuse. These things happened. So until we realize that, we go back to those stories and remove the shame that I was talking about here and go seek help. Because today we have abusive parents to their kids because they never healed themselves. I was actually reading. You go ahead. I was actually reading a note by a parent on Instagram who was saying, I don't love my 8-year-old. I just don't have. And I thought to myself, this woman was probably raped by the father of this child or was probably neglected by the father of this child. Trauma does a lot of things to people. It's no excuse, but obviously she is a wounded woman herself. This is a child she birthed. These things happen to people. Vuyo, you want to go ahead and say something good?
So now we have started talking about the foundations of all of these, sicknesses that we see in our communities. And the one thing that comes to me is what Unhlanhla also just talked on. And she talks about now trauma first, then the silence on the trauma. So that then perpetuates how big for me this GBV or whatever it is, that depression or whatever mental problem you're going to be having in future. So now, central to the foundation of whatever happened, when now you cannot speak, that's what kills you. Now I am sitting here thinking about Prof. Mayosi, for an example, a very lucrative professor in UCT, and you would just sit, you would never not sit and think, no, this man is intelligent. He's got everything. But now maybe this silence, because you are in this space, becomes the one that drives you away, right? And from my side, what we have started talking about, I had a live with a lady who's very dynamic in what she does. And she speaks to me and says, Vuyo, but the story that you told me about yourself, the story you've told me about yourself, you're sitting on it, man. You're sitting on it. And you know, I think you need some time, man. You need to jump out and start what you are talking about, right? I think, you know, the suffering in silence needs us to be able to have an art to tell the stories. Now, Nhlanhla also did talk about a men and them and us having to give the space to say, dude, it is time. The culture shift must be there. And now we should go into something fundamental in our lives. We need to go into a revolution of thinking, right? We need to have you come about, and that's what I am going to be doing with them, because she manages how you then actually set yourself to actually get into what you want to do, and the vision becoming the fact that I want men to live a fulfilled life because they are able to talk about the problems that they had, right? In a fulfilled life where they are available emotionally, because culture told them you need to keep quiet. You are a man, you cannot cry. So those are the discussions we are going to be having now. This for the first time I'm saying it. Now we are going to have those and get men to be able to sit in a space and say, amen, it's hard, right? It's hard. And this is this. If I tell my story, then let others tell their stories. Perhaps in South Africa, get, you know, who is CEOs, get the people who are celebrities or whoever to tell their stories. And now, you know, it's a thing to drown in alcohol. And my partner needs to understand me when I then sort of spatter words or become violent when I've drunk. But now I've always been shrinking my problems with keeping quiet. But when I dim my consciousness with alcohol, then I start being a gender-based violence person.
Yes.
Then I need to lose my everything because this is who I am. This is what society knows. But culture has forced me to go into a state where I am not able to say anything. So that's what you just talked to when I to say that we need a space where we have you know, all of us come together to say this is what we need to do, so that we can declutter everything that happened in the past.
Declutter, I love that. Yes. There's so much trauma, guys. People are walking around. Go ahead, like.
The thing is, we always go back to culture, you know, that has brought us where we are. And my thing is, if we want things to change, then we should not shift too much away from culture. So for somehow, some way, we need to be able to tap back to where the source of the problem is. I struggle with the fact that we almost like we speak to the converted, because we are all here on social media. We all have access to, you know, to internet and everything. And where the source is where my husband is going to go to December. And his where he's going to sit with the other men who are going to say, hey, when daughter, in daughter. And he's going to come back to the city and now practice what is happening back there. My thing is, Vuyo, Ukuti, we need to find a way to go right there, lapaya, emakhaya. We need to have a movement, a revolution. Tina, we need to, I don't know how, but when I studied, I said to myself, if it means my practice be male dominated, that is what I want. Because if culture says the husband is the head of the family and the rot is on top, what is happening to the whole family? If religion says the husband is the head of the family and the rat is on top, what is happening to the rest of the family? So in essence, if we do not help men heal, if we do not change the cultural and the socialization of men, we are not going anywhere. As women, we can be full in churches, we can be full in therapy, we can be everywhere, we can research. Right now, I'll tell you 90% of the people that are viewing this are female. And so we are speaking to the people who are already, who knows what we're talking about. So, and what I always say when we, even the first episode we had, I recorded it and I sent to people, I said, sit and watch it with your husband, sit and watch it with your fathers and with your sons. So what we need to do as women is whatever we get from these spaces, don't sit and go, sit. Instead of watching Gomorrah in the river and the whatnot, and say, can I request 20 minutes of your time or 10 minutes today? We will continue tomorrow, another 10 minutes, and just chew it in bite sizes so that we then can change. Otherwise, it's a thing that, and I always also say, Wuti, I the PowerPoint presentations don't work for me. And that's why when sometimes people invite me to say, please come and speak, and I say, PowerPoint sometimes for me, it loses me because I want to speak from the soul. I want the spirit to come through, because when I stand there, I feel your soul. I pull through the aura that's in the room that tells me Unati is suffering from this today. Today, the people that are listening, they want to hear Ukuti, we are here for the men. We're listening to them because they are the heads of the family, so culture says. And so if we believe that, the head needs to be healed for the whole body to be fine. Because imagine when we have a headache, you can't function, you can't process anything, you can't even be intimate because we've got a headache. So the headache, which is the men, needs to be healed. We need to heal the headache, which is the men, which is our sons, and which is our fathers, which is our traditional healers, which is our chief of Endaweni. And I'm going to start. I'm starting with the project sometime soon, where I'm going into our rural areas, and I want to speak to the traditional healers. I want to speak to the chief and his induna of Ilona, to ask them, what is it that you understand about mental illness? What is it that you understand about GBV? What is it that you understand about patriarchy, and what are you doing as the people in leadership to teach men to be our soulmates? My soulmate needs to feed my soul. My soulmate should not take away my soul. And that should come from the leaders. And the leaders are the ones that are grooming our husbands. Because right now, we are we're going towards festive. Black people are going where? Emakaya. And what are we doing? Yes, what are we doing? The Makoti is sitting in the kitchen cooking throughout the Christmas. Where is the husband? Sitting with the men. What are they talking about? So we need to change the narrative. When they're sitting there in the kraal, wherever they're slaughtering, they need to start talking about how are we going to love our wives? How are we going to show them we appreciate them for this meal? How are we even going to say thank you that you cooked? Because that thank you doesn't even come, because you're supposed to do it. So we need to start by bite sizes, to just teach them to say thank you. I love you. I missed you when you were in the kitchen. Soulmate must feed my soul. Soulmate is not taking my soul. No, thank you.
Dada, I love the approach of going back where we're from. And I love the fact that you are acknowledging our cultures. And also, truly, one time I was interviewing a psychologist who bases his practice in African culture. He's in the States, and he said, you know what, Unati, I don't want us, when we introduce mental health to our people, come across with all these big words. You need to speak in their language, in the way they will understand. Do you understand? Because let's talk about our culture as before everything else, before the pain, before the trauma, the concept of Ubuntu. When you look at the Ubuntu word, Umundu ngumundu ngabantu, I am because of you, then it means that you cannot hate what you love. Do you understand? You cannot hate what you value. You cannot hate what that is precious to you. So something happened along the lines. One time I was actually listening to a speech by the Namibian First Lady, and she said, until we heal our presidents, Africa as a continent is in trouble, because our leaders, she said, our leaders are wounded. These are the products of the pain that happened to us. So until we realize that and acknowledge, and I know that we went through the reconciliation process, which also played a big role in the anger. Last time Tata was here, talked about how our grandfathers went to mines. So the concept of family units and the love and the celebrating each other, something that was broken because your grandfather would be a boy where he worked, and how does he come back and become a man at home, right? So you guys, this is beautiful. I wish we could have a third part of this because it's so much. Because you know what, guys, as we wrap up, I'm gonna pull up people's comments because people commented. I also want us to talk about how do we embrace a girl child, because the other thing, this power you talked about, the patriarchy we talk about, also stems, I mean, it brings about that pain to a girl child being disempowered. When we start embracing education for girl children, because a lot of countries believe that once you reach that adolescence, teenage stage, it's time to marry you. So now we are giving away these kids' power to older men. We are silencing them. And then unfortunately, that's what we saw with our grandparents, where a woman would be in a situation of polygamy, would be probably be exposed to gender-based violence and would be quiet because she had nowhere to go. She has no independence. Independence. So let's encourage education to boy children. As you go back to the villages, talk about that. Talk about that. I was proud of, was it the president of Malawi, the woman who took over and ended the child's marriage? I was proud of that woman. All right, guys, I'm going to pull up the comments and you're going to answer these people's comments as we go along. I'll pull up Conversations for Connection says narcissism is certainly a big part of the problem of gender-based violence. That's for sure, you're right. And Wiseman said it's painful. Yes, it does. My mother says she's watching from South Africa. Bishop. And Wiseman says, I was just wondering if poverty also elevates GBV. Absolutely. We just said that. Until we empower women and also men in general, empower until our governments, our countries empower youth, because now if we empower youth, things will get better at a later stage.
Politics.
Absolutely. And oh yes, Fanti says something, how to stop denial. You guys are gonna comment on that. How to stop denial that something happened to you. Any comments on that? How, because a lot of times people, they are numb to pain. People are numb to pain and it comes across as denial. You know, people, they've blocked it. Go ahead.
Can I say my situation? I had depression, okay? And I never wanted any person to say that I'm depressed. And I then went into a space where I used alcohol quite a lot, numbing, right? Then things were you know, decelerating. And somebody came in to say, listen, I think there's a problem. And I then, you know, chose to keep quiet in that space. And I was angry inside still because I didn't see this depression because then I had the capacity.
You diagnosed it every day, right?
Yeah. But I've got the capacity to numb it. I'm okay, right? And then when that somebody came in, and then everything started coming out, and I said, oh wow, but I was depressed. And I then got help, and I even had to change spaces. So for me, denialism is not, I want to deny. Listen, let me get prepared to say, no, this didn't happen. So for me, it was something that I was not seeing. So until somebody else came in and intervened.
Can you please share with this world who got you out of that thing? It always brings me goosebumps. I love your mother. Can you please share with the people here? Because I honestly feel that it's just a very special thing to say.
No, sure, man. So for me, I went through a very severe depression, something that nearly basically killed me on all avenues, driving and, you know, waking up and not seeing where I am, right? That which Nhlanhla talked about, to say silence about a lot of things. So I was now a clinical manager of a hospital in Eastern Cape. And then my mother came in and says, no, man, there's something not right here. She goes to the CEO, and I'm thinking, but who does she think she is? Because, you know, then who am I going to leave in this hospital? So my mother came in, talked to the CEO to say, this child, you know, they made a bond, you know, they talked, and then they really were mothers, because the CEO was also a mother. And she says, no, I don't want that happening. And you know, this child is going to die. I don't want that happening. Then the other mother on the other side says, yes, I think it's about time. And at that time, they you know, talked what they talked about. And when she came back, and I, at the time, chose to keep quiet because I saw things were not right, but I was not in a space where I could not, you know, solve anything for myself. So my mother came into that space. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why I'm talking.
I'm always blessed by listening to that, Vuyo, because a lot of times it goes back to the connection your mother had with you as a child. So to me, what I see with your mother and you at that moment, it's a mother who knew or who knows her son. So this is basically a lesson for mothers to connect with their mother, with their sons, with their boys, because had she not connected with you at a younger age, and I wish we had time where you could actually share here how you grew up and how beautiful your mother involved in the things. So this shows that truly, when we as caretakers of our kids, fathers included, we need to get to know our kids, and we can see when there's a shift, we can see when there's a discord, because she could have just let you be because she didn't know who you are. I mean, let's talk about it. When we leave high school, we are gone for 6 years. We train medicine, and we are gone. We do internship, and then we are gone community service. We are gone. We do there's so much. But to me, your story is so beautiful because it means that you were connected to your mother. She didn't lose who you are, and she stepped up as a parent and did not see a doctor in you. She saw her son. She saw Vuyo. That's powerful. Honestly, I really love that story. It will always be very special to my heart because we tend to think we underestimate the beauty and also the bonds mothers have to have with their boy children. And it's just beautiful. I'm always blessed listening to that. Glada, do you want to say something, sis?
Guys, I'm going to be leaving you soon, okay? But I just want to say thank you so much to you, Vuyo, for sharing your story. And I hope more mothers could actually be empowered to do that, because what that is just being empowered, because some will think, you know, some mothers, by virtue of your son being more educated, they start giving the role start changing. You start losing your role as a parent and start going under, and let your son dictate to you what needs to happen and what shouldn't happen. So I'm very proud of that woman for just sticking to her guns and saying, I am still a parent. I don't care or what. The roles should not change because of our education or because of our status. So, and also thank you to you for actually acknowledging, which my mom is still my mom. I don't care what people call me. I could be a clinical manager of the hospital, but Mama is the manager of my life. She is the CEO of my soul. And that's what I was talking about when I say a soul much should save your soul, and your mother is actually your soul giver. And she still keeps doing that until the end. So thank you so much for having me. I need to just go do my stuff now. So family keeps...
Thank you so much, sis. And also to our viewers, we're going to wrap up right now. Thank you for watching till the end. You know, we hold these spaces for safety, and it also helps us. We heal from these stories. We heal from listening to other people's stories. We heal from also listening to your comments. So don't underestimate your contribution. Thank you for staying with us. And to you, Vuyo, again, thank you so much for sharing your story and listening to that woman who got you out of that little rabbit hole there. Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks for that. Thanks, Toli.
I love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.